Hey folks, in this interview, it's all about SLR Lounge and Pye Jirsa. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Scene podcast from Skyloom. In this episode, I'm speaking with Pye Jirsa. He's one of the co-founders or a co-founder of a little company you may have heard of called SLR Lounge. He's a co-founder and creative director over there. We're going to be talking about that and some other cool things that he's involved in. I think you're going to get a lot out of this conversation. It's really good. I continue to get a lot out of this conversation the more I talk with this guy. So, hey, Pye.
You're being
Pye,
very
welcome
kind.
to the... Dude, come on! Who cannot get a lot out of conversation? You're like a multi-layered onion with all the stuff you have going on. So, welcome to the show, man. It's good to have you.
Thanks, brother. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to be here. I told you, just a little inside baseball. You and I had our pre-interview chat a day or so ago, and what did you say when we got on the Skype? You said something about my voice or something. You said,
"Oh no!" The first thing, you entered like. The first thing you said was like, "Hey, what's going on, man?" I'm like, "Oh man, that's a great voice, dude." It was awesome.
And then this coming from pot calling kettle black, right? So it was, it was like, "Hey man, that's a great voice you got there." I was like, "Awesome, that is awesome."
I put people to sleep, brother. You have the same deepness, but with the energy. It's fantastic.
That's that energy. Thank you. That energy comes from coffee, so it's all good. It's all good. You got the quiet storm. So you got the quiet storm. I got the energetic storm. So we're
That's
all
funny.
good. Well, let's kick this off, man. So SLR Lounge is a company that you co-founded. So tell me about that world, and sort of the inception of that business. I've been a fan of what you get. The stuff that you guys do is quality, right? So I'm a fan of anything that it looks like people put effort into doing, and clearly you guys put a lot of effort into everything you do. Tell me about the inception of SLR Lounge.
I appreciate that, dude. So, and full disclosure, I have Frederick right here on my left. So if I glance to the left, I'm not working. I'm looking at Frederick's face. But I'm going to try as much as I can to talk into that camera.
You're not on Instagram?
I'm not yet. So, we started SLR Lounge actually after Lin and Jirsa Photography. So our very first business, Justin and Chris and myself, we're three equal partners. We are best friends and family. We kind of went and created Lin and Jirsa Photography. It's a photography studio based out of Orange County. And as it started to kind of pick up success, we were training staff members. And my job was training in the photography and the post-production in all those pieces. And as we started hiring, it was like just teaching every one of these people the same thing over and over. And I'm like, you know what? Why don't we put together a website? We're going to house all the content and education there. If other people enjoy it, great. Like maybe other people will find this stuff interesting. And so that's when SLR Lounge was born. And for a long time, for 2-3 years, it was just kind of our place to post articles and the things that I would be teaching our team members. Eventually, about 3 years in, we introduced kind of like the first product. And then it became, hey, people actually want education and resources and all those different things. And so we just kind of kept running with it. And now I think today we have around 750,000 unique visitors a month, a couple million page views, and it's a popular website, particularly in the areas of portrait and wedding photography. So that's kind of the focus of it.
They're doing that niche. So you guys go outside of that a little bit though, right? You're not all just portrait and wedding.
I mean, for the most part, we do some education that's outside of that, more for just for fun, because we do have a lot of our premium members do landscape and they do other types of photography, and so we'll teach that as well. But I would say personally, I'm most drawn towards portraiture. So anything that has people in it, to be honest, and it doesn't matter whether it's commercial, whether it's family, whether it's maternity, all those things are very, to me, I'm very passionate about, and so those are the areas that I kind of stick to when it comes to the education and the content.
That's interesting because I'm the exact same way. I would prefer to take photos of humans and people versus a landscape or street photography or something like that. What's your reasoning for that? My own reasons are different. I'll share those after you share yours, so I don't taint the witness.
Taint the witnesses. This is very serious, man. We're in a courtroom now.
Exactly. Anything you say can and will be.
Crap. You know, I actually don't really know why. I mean, I could probably draw some things from it in the area of wedding and engagement and love. And this might be, we're going to get deep into here, Frederick. Here we go.
Bring it.
So
Bring it, man.
I was in a very bad, and I want to give kind of some context, but in a not good marriage for quite a while. It was about 14 years. And it was always this thing, like love and relationships and connection has always been this thing that has fascinated me. And at the end of the day, you know, I started falling in love with the art of photographing couples and love and weddings and all these things. And now I look back and go, well, it was probably because it's this thing that I was very much missing, you know, in my own home and in my own marriage. And so when I would see it in other places, I would be drawn towards it and I would want to photograph it and document it because I know I could sense its fleeting nature. And looking back, it's very clear now that why I enjoyed this area. But back then it was just kind of like I was drawn towards it. Like I'd photographed so many different things, but it was the people, it was the relationships, it was that really kind of held me in. So yeah, that would be the reason. I mean, give me a landscape and I'm like, yeah, it's cool, it's fine. Like I can
that is
stay
really
here for a
interesting.
couple minutes and take a picture, but you put a person in it and I'm like, dude, this is fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I have friends, wedding photographer friends that say the same thing. They'll look at landscape shots or, you know, whatever, and they're like, yeah, that's great, but it needs a bride in it. You know?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they have,
exactly.
they have that mindset. And my own, the way that I look at stuff like that is I agree with everything you said, first of all, but then also when I live in the Bay Area, you know, or just north of the Bay Area, and when you know, there's a couple of landscapes, or not landscapes, but landmarks around here, like the Golden Gate Bridge, Bay Bridge, and San Francisco skyline, Treasure Island, and, you know, those kind of shots. And I go there and it's like, wow, look at the Golden Gate Bridge. It's amazing. Look at all this history. And then my brain switches to photographer mode and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
how can I take a picture of this that hasn't been done before? You know, I see in my head, I see this bubble of like around the bridge with like 2 million points on it. Each point has had a photo taken from it. And I'm
Immediately
thinking,
your relaxing day turns stressful.
it's very stressful. I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to enjoy the bridge. Somebody else did this and it'll look much better than what I could do, you know? And I know other photographers have a different perspective on that. But conversely, when I look at people or models or portraiture, it's like, okay, if I take a picture of this, I'm capturing a point in time of this person that will not occur again. You're right.
Yeah.
So I'm capturing and if it's like a model or like a boudoir shot or something like that, it's like, okay, I'm capturing you at your best at this point in time, and you're going to treasure this photo. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Especially these days, right? Who knows what's going to happen? And this photo will be a visual record of you at your best at this point in time in 2020. So
For sure.
landscapes are going to be here long after, I would argue, after the human race is gone, right? So people,
We hope.
not so much. People are gone. People are gone. That's interesting. So you sound like a emotion and feelings and that kind of stuff really permeates your work, right? And
For sure. I mean, yeah.
Is it
sure.
intentional, or is it just like, you know, I can't help it, that's just the kind of person I am? Or do you draw from that to like drive your creativity?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. You know, I have friends that do landscape photography, like that is what they're passionate about. And from a personality standpoint, we're very different people. I would say that I'm an introvert, but I'm also a very social person in that like I do want to be around people and I want to get to know them and I want to create relationships. I don't necessarily like to do that on a large group scale. Like an extrovert would go into a party and just be like, just feeding off that. I find large group situations to be draining. But these intimate conversations, these are things that I live for. And I get that from the perspective of this portrait photographer that has the camera. In fact, you know, the camera kind of offers you, it's that tool, it's your doorway, it's your gateway, your passport, whatever you want to call it. It's that license to be able to get to know somebody and to be able to ask questions and to be able to document things that people would normally be like, yeah, why do you have a camera there? And you're like, oh no, you're a wedding photographer. You're documenting the moments, the relationships, all that kind of stuff. And I feed a lot of energy on that. And in contrast, my landscape photography friends find that all to be very draining.
Yeah.
They get their energy from just finding a beautiful perch after hiking to it for 3 hours, sitting there, setting up the tripod, and waiting for that perfect moment. And for me, that's like torture. Like, you might as well just like I can't think of anything I would rather not. Like, I love hiking, like that part's great, but you stand me in front of like on a cliff and be like, okay, now we're just going to wait for 2 hours for the sun to get in that perfect position. And I'm going to like drive myself crazy. I will end up probably jumping off the cliff before I get that photograph. Like, that's,
so you're not going to be like Ansel Adams, like hiking to Yosemite and waiting forever to get the shot and then taking it back and processing it for days and all that. That's it's a different kind of person. Yeah.
I will hike Yosemite. I took a client up there, like an engagement shoot I actually did up in Yosemite. And I took my client, we got up to Vernal Falls, took our shot, and I'm like, great, let's go. Like, it's time to pack up and go. Like, let's go find our next location. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to stay there and just be like, so there's part of this that is finding where your passion lies, but there's also part of this in recognizing where your personality falls in, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And I want to explore that a little bit, because I know a lot of photographers, let's call it beginning photographers, that are really excited about the art and science and technology of photography. They're getting into it. They have their mentors. They've been consuming content online. Some of yours, they're looking at this stuff, and they what I've seen from my perch is they haven't had that moment of clarity where, they say, I'm not a landscape photographer, or I'm not this kind of photographer. They try to force fit themselves into what they see other people doing. And they may see a shot of, Yosemite or something, or Half Dome, and they're like, oh, this is great, I want to do something like that. But it's not in their DNA to do that kind of work. Maybe they're a portrait photographer, maybe they're a street photographer, maybe they're, do you think, is it possible for, this is a loaded question, I know the answer is yes, but where do you fall on photographers being good at a number of genres? Should people say, I can shoot landscape, or I can shoot street, or I can shoot macro, or whatever, or should they find one that they love and drill deep on it, riches in the niches type stuff? What do you think on that?
I mean, so I would say that the beginning process, like, if you break it out into phases, right? Like, I would say when you're just picking up your camera and you're starting to get excited about creating, you should create any and everything. Like, you should do landscapes, you should do portraits, you should, if you get an opportunity to go do a wedding, go do a wedding. Like these are all things that I think you should try every single thing as you're honing your techniques and your experience. And then you should go back and kind of look at it. In fact, you can even document. I carry a sketch pad everywhere. And so I'll actually mind map out thoughts for the day, things that I need to do. And this, I don't necessarily journal. It's more like a kind of creative free drawing type thing. And so I'll do this on a daily basis. And you go back and you can look at, well, how these different things made you feel. And when you get past the, I'm good at quite a few of these things, then you start looking back, and I would say now is the time to say, okay, what of these things am I most passionate about? Is it products? I've shot products before. Again, it's one of those situations where I'd rather jump off the cliff than stand there for 3 hours it's the same with product photography. Like you have a product, I'm going to photograph this bottle, and you're going to have 10 lights around you, and you're going to sit there and manipulate those lights for 2 hours to get them in the perfect situation, just to get all the right highlights and everything on this. And I can appreciate the level of detail and a skill that goes into it. But I'd rather look at it, not be the one capturing it. So you start taking notes, and you start kind of looking back on which of these areas were the ones that drew me in. And then I would say it's time for you to focus on that niche, because once you're past that beginner's phase, once you're not going to be able to ever get to a level of skill where if the goal is to get paid, you're not going to be able to get to that level of skill to get paid unless you focus on that niche first. And then once you've got that thing, so now you've mastered that one thing, and you're getting paid and you're doing well, then go and apply it to other areas as you see fit. But I know too many photographers that try to kick up a business doing everything, and none of them takes off because they're not necessarily good at any one of those things. And you can't really survive off of, $200 shoots. You price yourself out.
Right.
So,
right. And that's scary though, right? Because it takes a certain person to be able to break free of that gravity. And that gravity gets stronger as you get, your skill increases over a number of genres, and you start understanding, f-stop, shutter speed, light, and all this stuff. And you start, okay, I can do street photography. It looks okay. You may not enjoy it, or I can do wedding photography, and I made, X $1,000s from doing a wedding. I got bills to pay. Maybe I'll do more of that. And then you fall into that dangerous trap of, I hate doing weddings now, and I have 15 booked now, but I hate it. And now I hate photography. What do you say to those people? How do they break free of that little eddy of getting stuck in there and branching free of that gravity to do something they really love?
Oh man, So a lot of this comes down to ego. A lot of times we pick up a camera and we go and we see something on Instagram, we go and we see something online, and we think, I can do that. I can do better than that. This person has 100,000 followers, 200,000. They have 1 million. I can do all of that. I'm going to do it better. And then you start doing it and you realize that you really don't enjoy it. And that's what a lot of people do in terms of weddings. They go, I can take great portraits. I'm going to shoot weddings. And they don't realize that weddings is being great at portraiture and lighting. And weddings is a fun area because it's like you have to actually be good at all of these things. You have to kind of be that Renaissance man or woman who approaches this, and it's just, your lighting, your craft, everything well enough that if someone says, you've got a minute to do this, you don't lose your mind and you just go and focus and get that thing. Mm-hmm. And that's how it is. You deal with timeline constraints, pressure, relationships, and all of these different things going on all at the same time. And the end result can be very lucrative. My minimum booking for 2020 and 2021 is somewhere around $15,000 for a single day wedding. But when people find out that, like when a person that's starting out finds out, what does it cost to book Pye for a day, they go, oh man, I would love to be able to charge $10,000 or $12,000 or $15,000 just for a day's work. Now it's far more than just a day's work. That's our misconception.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we get into this mindset of, I can do that. I deserve that. I want to go and make the money. And we focus on the wrong piece of it because those people jump into it and maybe they do get 5 weddings that pay them well, but then they hate it and they hate every moment of their lives, and they can't ever get to that place where they're hitting that level of success because their own personality is stopping them. And they turn into the kind of negative people. I hate weddings. I hate this. And I'm like, there's not a lot to hate about weddings. If you don't like it, you should not do them. If dealing with a upset mom ruins your day, get out of, it's like a chef saying, yeah, I love to cook, but man, when the stove gets hot, I'm out, dude. Like, I'm done. And you're like, what? Like this is what it is to be in a kitchen.
Like, I love LA, but I hate traffic, right?
Yeah. Like I get it. So you got to figure that out because and that's what's weird about it is like, so how do you get out of it? Well, first is doing what we kind of talked about earlier, where you try a lot of different things and write down the things that resonate with you and focus on those to begin with. Because as a landscape photographer, you might be like, yeah, but I want to make that $10,000 per wedding. Well, you're never going to get there if you hate it. As a landscape photographer, there might not be one person that's going to give you $10,000 to go and take a photograph, but you can amass a following. If that is your passion, if that is what you want to do, you can get millions of followers by teaching and educating and posting images and selling wall art and doing all that. You're going to create your business in a different way. It's going to be around that genre and around that craft. So it's important to look past the money and past the, oh, I can do that, and think more of, what can I do long term? What could I be passionate about for the next 10 years? Not just, people are passionate about the end result. What process can you be passionate about? The everyday grind. That is what you have to figure out where your passion is. I kind of hate the word passion because people reference passion in relation to the end result. Oh, I really want to be I want to be LeBron James. And like, that's the end result. Can you be passionate about practicing for 8 hours every single day from the time that you were 10 years old?
Yeah.
That's the question that you have to ask.
Everyone wants a shortcut, right?
Exactly. And Frederick, I wonder too, there's a certain fear I think that a lot of people have. And if they pick a genre, there's a fear of, well, I'm going to be missing out. Now I can't do other stuff. Like I've focused my niche. So what would you advise people like that say, well, I don't want to focus because I do want to shoot everything?
Me personally, the same thing you say. So I would say, you know, it's a linear curve, right? Or it's a curve. So you start generalizing. It's like dating when you're a kid, right? You're gonna date a bunch of people.
You dated when you were a kid?
Well,
man,
I think I started at 6. Come on now.
Wow.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
So far behind.
When I say kid, I mean teenager, right? So you're dating, and you know, my mom encouraged us to date because she's like, you got to know what you like, right? So you have to date different people to understand, so that when you find the one, that's where you apply pressure, and you know, and you're in it to win it. Same thing for this kind of stuff. You have to apply pressure. I like it. You apply pressure and heat. Pressure and heat makes diamonds. So yeah, that's what you do. So you find a genre that you try all these different kinds of photography, and you know, et cetera, and then one that you keep going back to, or one that is friction free or keeps you up at night, or the one you're Googling all the time and learning techniques about. That's probably the one that you want to do. I would throw it back on you, though. Part of the danger, I think I'm simplifying it, obviously, because part of the danger, if you overlay economics on top of it, and I'm guilty of this, like a decade or so ago, was, you know, hey, I see that there's, you know, a friend of mine is charging $5 grand, 10 grand for a wedding. Let me open up a spreadsheet. Okay, if I do 10 grand a wedding and I do just one wedding every weekend, I'm styling, you know.
I got $500,000 right there.
Exactly. Yeah. I could do that even if I hate weddings. I could just keep doing that in perpetuity until I can do what I want to do. What do you say to those people? The spreadsheet photographers that are looking at it and building a business and saying, all I got to do is throw up a Squarespace site, you know, put some images in there, give me a price list set up, you know, and buy some Google ads or something, drive traffic, and I'm in the money. What do you say to those people?
It's the exact same thing. So the issue on that side is you're looking at the money first, right? And so you look at first to support, to create the kind of product that a $10,000 client wants. That's a lot of, I mean, you need to get your 10,000 hours into that craft to be able to create that kind of a product and to be able to give that kind of experience. Now, there might be the one-off people out there that can jump into it and just be like, I'm that naturally talented, but I would honestly bet that 99%, including myself, are not that. We have to work every single step of the way to gain our creativity and to gain our tools and our skill set. So, you know, getting to that $10,000 wedding, let's say it requires those 10,000 hours, and let's say you put in 2,000 hours a year, right? That's a full-time effort. So for 5 years, can you grind away 40 hours a week doing the not $10,000 weddings, doing the $500 weddings, doing the $1,000 weddings? I mean, we started, our first wedding was free. Then it was $250. Then it was $500. Do you know what kind of weddings you get at $500? I mean, you're like in somebody's backyard, and it's not a nice backyard. It's like maybe, you know, 50 square feet, and there's some chairs there, and there's like, you know, a flower pot, and that's the essential, the flowers that they brought for them. And they're like, yeah, just create some nice pictures. Like, it is a depressing environment to be in at the beginning of this. And if you're looking at it and your motivation is the money, you're never going to get there. You're never going to get to that place where you're actually getting that. And if you do manage to con a few people into paying you $10,000, you tank your business because you don't deliver. Then you deal with complaints, and then you deal with, you know, all the people that are, you become that jaded photographer, like, weddings are stupid. Like, there's no point in shooting weddings because people just aren't happy. And it's like, no, dude, you did not get to the place where you could charge that and provide a value. Because no matter what price point you're charging, my rule is always be a value at the price you're charging. I consider if a client is paying, you know, we've had contracts that are $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 to get me come out for like a 2 or 3 day wedding. I consider, when they have me there, and I'm capturing images that few people in the world would be able to see and document. There is a very strong value to that. And I do believe that regardless of what they're paying, I'm always going to be giving them something more than what they expect. And that's important at any price point. But you can't do it. You can't get there if you're fixated on just the end result.
And you're building a brand, right? So you've built a brand around yourself, around Pye Jirsa. So there's a brand there, and people that look at your site and look at the work that you've done, they associate, I would assume they associate a certain level of quality with that brand that you can't buy that brand. So how do you, speaking to the photographers that are thinking of jumping into whatever genre and building a business eventually around this, how do they build or position themselves both in mindset and externally to build a high-end brand? If you're going in low, all right, you're doing those backyard weddings, but you want to be perceived as Tiffany's, but you're doing Walmart level work because you have to at the beginning. How do you present as Tiffany's even though you're doing Walmart level, money-wise work?
That's a great question. So part of and for all the people that are watching this, I would love for you guys to follow me. You guys can follow me on Pye Jirsa on Instagram or on TikTok. I'm actually going to be starting up a new username called Born Uncreative. So cool. The whole concept here is that you can create incredible images with the most basic of everything, and that's what I have on these two platforms. So if you see it, you'll see we'll be in the middle of, we'll be in my house and be like, oh, I want to get a cool picture of my kid doing unboxing his first camera. And it's about learning the techniques to turn any ordinary location, any ordinary shot, anything normal that we kind of are used to seeing into something that's unique and extraordinary. And it takes nothing other than just knowledge and practice. It's just the education and the practice that goes along with it to be able to create something out of nothing. So you go and you do these, let's say that they're the Walmart weddings, the low end weddings that are just in really bad places, and you make them look great. You go and you pull them off to the side and you shoot different angles. And I remember one client where we were doing like a little piece of their wedding day in their house, and you go out to the side of the house and it's just this nasty yard. But if you go and look right to the side, there was this alleyway, and this alleyway was like kind of perfectly lit, and there was cement wall on the right side, and it's gray cement, right? That doesn't look good. But on the left side, there were some trees and stuff, and I was like, oh, that gray cement would be a great fill light. And we placed them there, and we get these beautiful images, and it looks like they're in this gorgeous park, but it's literally the side of their house. So it's learning how to take those things and make them extraordinary and make them presentable and make them what you envision them to be. And in the meanwhile, if you are not shooting, if your clients aren't yet at that caliber, then it's on you to go and what we say, do test shoots and styled shoots. So once a week, Frederick, this is a minimum. Almost right now, I'm probably doing 2 to 3 test shoots a week currently, even during this pandemic. Now it shifted from working with models and clients to working with my family. So I'm just shooting everything with my children as my models and things. But you're constantly honing and refining these techniques, and all the images that I create on my own are the types of images that I want my clients to purchase. So what do? I create those images, I go to the locations, I create all those different shots, and I post them as if they are client shoots, as if they are new images that I'm creating. And you get the party started. It's like the line that you're building outside of the club. There might not be anybody in the club quite yet, but you're building this line that to create a perception that the club is busy and it's popping I never use that word popping. I don't know why I said it right now. I don't even go to clubs,
use it.
Frederick.
It's on record now. I told you anything you say.
As a 40-year-old, I just said popping.
You said it.
So you create those, and then your clients come and say, I want that. We just took a trip to Joshua Tree, and I guarantee as soon as those images go onto our website, our clients can be like, oh man, we really want to go to Joshua Tree. And I'm like, great, let's do a destination engagement shoot. Oh, cool. How much is that? It's $5,000 for the day. Perfect. How do we sign up? How do we do this? So you create the work, in your own time. And this is where the passion has to be. You have to be passionate about the process, because if you're doing weddings, you need to be getting couples and going and doing test engagement shoots and test shoots everywhere and hone the skill to get to that place. So that's how you bridge the gap, is your own test shoots. These are the shoots that you do for your own desire and out of your own time to create that body of work that your clients want to hire and purchase.
I love that. I love it. You know, we could talk about this for hours and hours, because there's so much to. Yeah, I love this. But you know what? I want to pivot and talk about, you know, fast forward. And again, if people want to follow you and dive into the mind of Pye, I'm going to put all the links to all your presences in the blog post and in the YouTube description here. But you're at the level now where you started diversifying. Like we talked about SLR Lounge.com, and you've got other initiatives like you're building presets and selling presets and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that evolution, because it sounds like you're crushing it on the wedding and portrait side already. Why add more complexity to your world?
Well, you get these, like, we are systems people. So Justin, Chris, myself, we come from a CPA background, and we're systems people. We used to work for Ernst & Young. We like to set up a process. And so on the Lin and Jirsa side, what we've done is we've created a brand and a consistency and a look to our work. And I've created all the education behind that. So now our teams essentially take that education, they take that knowledge, and they create our work. It's like kind of, it's almost like franchising, but without franchising. It's franchising in a boutique model, right? So people, we have 30 something creative professionals that shoot under the Lin and Jirsa name, that aim for that exact style that clients love. So we shoot almost about 1,000 client commissions a year. About 350 of them are weddings. Granted, everything's on pause right now. But then we process millions of images each year. And this is where Visual Flow was born, was, okay, so now my job is to create a system and a process for processing all of these raw files, these millions of images. So what I said was, all right, so if I were to look at most preset packs, they're just a grouping of settings, right? A photographer will say, I like the way that this looks. I'm going to save it out and sell it for $15. Well, I'm like, you know, I don't want, like, though that doesn't really work that well. If you use these presets, they work in ideal situations, and then in 90% of the other situations, they don't work at all. And you're like sitting there finagling, and it eliminates the purpose of them. So again, going back to kind of systems and things, is I said, okay, let me to look at these millions of images that we're creating on a yearly basis. I started separating them out into lighting conditions and saying, okay, these are all the different lighting conditions that we deal with on a typical wedding day, or a typical portrait session, or a typical anything. Then I started grouping them up and saying, how many of these have to be processed differently? So how many of them require different settings to get to the same place? And I started grouping them up. And I said, oh, looks like there's 10 approximate lighting conditions that make up 99% of what we shoot. So what if I developed a look, and then we created a algorithm, a formula that could adapt that look over to the different lighting conditions? And so that's what Visual Flow is. And we launched it last October, and we already have thousands of photographers in it, because now what you have is you buy a pack which has a specific look that you're trying to get to, and it adapts that look automatically to soft light conditions, hard lighting, HDR scenes, backlighting, tungsten environments, oversaturated, uplighting, tungsten mix environments, green saturated, like everything is adapted over those looks. So you have essentially an intelligent version of a preset. And the next step in this is we're actually developing the artificial intelligence, legit artificial intelligence with Canon. We're working with Canon directly to create artificial intelligence that can detect the lighting condition. So when you load up the raw files, it'll actually detect, this is hard light, this is an HDR scene, and it'll automatically assign the correct lighting condition. And what you end up having is the very first version of a AI-based raw processing engine. So you import your images, and you just watch them be post-processed in front of your eyes. You verify them, and you're done. Like that's
cool.
So everything is kind of a system that we create. And then once that system is created, that's when we can move on to something else. So SLR Lounge, most of that is run by our team members now. And all I do is kind of create some of the ongoing content. Lin and Jirsa is run by our team members. All we do is shoot, on occasion to kind of keep the brand up. But you keep building these. It's kind of like spinning up plates, right? If you were to imagine like a circus person spinning up plates, you spin one up and then you start up another one, but you can't spin multiple plates at the same time. Like there's no way for you to start 5 plates at the same time. But what you can do is spin one up, get it going, then spin a second one up, get it going, then spin a third, and then you keep revisiting them and keep giving them a little bit of energy here and there. So that's what
they're all related to each other, so it's all fun, and you love doing what you're doing. That's awesome, man. So so it sounds like, okay, we have a successful photography business, we have a successful online property, education, et cetera, et cetera. Now you're moving into, the tools to help people create images that are along the vein of what you've been doing before in the first 2 steps. So that's 3 legs of a tripod. Are we making a table here? What's number 4? Do you have a 4 on the horizon of what's next for Pye?
Well, I actually wrote a book over the last couple of years. Speaking of relationships, it's a book that I've been researching and developing for almost a decade. Started writing it about 2 years ago. And I have an entire broad audience podcast idea and business. And this is the next thing that I'm pitching to my business partners. So hopefully they buy off on it. And the next thing that we do is going to be this thing. So,
can you give us a hint as to what it's about?
Well, the book is called
some foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing. I would love to, but it's a secret. But I will tell you later.
All right, that's not foreshadowing. That's a cliffhanger. So that's
a cliffhanger.
That's cool. Well, let's end on this, Pye. So I wanted to. There's a book that I talk about a lot. It's called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and one of the things that they talk about in that book is, if the kind of the dream is to take your hobby, like, it's the stereotypical guy, unhappy, sitting in his cubicle all day, dreaming of when he gets off work or the weekend when he can actually pursue his hobby, because that's where he's really happy. And then it creeps in, well, what if I can make money doing that thing that I love? That would be utopia. Fast forward, he quits his job, does that thing, and then begins to resent that thing because of all the other stuff around, let's call it building a ship in a bottle and selling those that he didn't really account for. In the world of photography, have you seen that? And what can people do to sort of circumvent that? Like, if I decide, hey, I like photography, I'm working at Apple right now, but I'm going to quit and go become a wedding photographer because I love weddings and I love shooting. I'm going to put those together. And then, but I want that person to avoid doing that and then hating photography and hating weddings and then be in a job that he hates and no longer at Apple. Right. So how do you fight that?
I mean, the short 1-word answer would be visualization. And so this is the technique, and I'll tell you why and how. The answer goes back to, again, that passion for the process. So it's not about passion for the end result. It's about the passion for the process of getting to that place. And I'll give you an example. I very much enjoy racing cars. So I used to have a track car, and I used to actually teach high performance driving to friends and things like that. It was a fun and enjoyable hobby of mine. And I got decently good at it. And there's a certain point where I started to kind of evaluate, what would it look like if I wanted to do this more? Like if I wanted to actually pursue this as a profession. And so at this point in my life, this was like maybe 5-6 years ago. At this point in my life, I'd learned enough to understand the process of visualization and how to play it through my mind. So I actually went and sat down in my car seat as I kind of wanted to visualize what this would look like. And I just played it out through my mind. And I said, okay, let's take any of these professional racers. Doesn't matter if you're F1 or NASCAR, take any one of them. I could start to envision, okay, daily routine would be to get up 6 or 7 a.m. You need to get your workout in before you get out, and you're going to head straight to the track. Now, once you're at the track, you're probably going to tune the car, work on the car for maybe an hour or two. Then you're going to go for some hot laps. You're going to make adjustments. You're going to sit in the car. If you're doing like any type of long, like Le Mans type racing, and we're talking like long-term racing in the car for hours at a time. Mm-hmm. And as I'd race, I would kind of take notes on what that felt like. And I realized very quickly that just in this process of visualization that I loved racing as a hobby, and I don't even mind teaching high performance driving to my friends and making that a hobby. But to turn this into a profession, I would have to do a lot of things that I don't want to do. I don't want to sit in the car for 4 to 6 hours a day. I don't want to just work on cars. I don't want to sit there and just write down the nuanced details of how to adjust brakes and suspension and how to tune them for this particular track. And then you very quickly go, it doesn't take more than 10 minutes of going through this process to say, I'm not passionate about that process. I think it'd be cool to be Dale Earnhardt Jr. I think it'd be cool to be, you know, the latest F1 whoever, which, who is it right now? I forgot. But either way, you don't enjoy the process enough to get there. So same thing with photography is walking through what it is to be a photographer. And just because you're not passionate about that process doesn't mean you should stop. I still enjoy cars. Like, it just means you keep those things separated as a hobby. So you love photography. Okay, well, let's take the example of studio portraiture. Okay, you're thinking, I really love studio portraiture. I want to do this for a business. I'm working at the Apple store. I'm going to turn this into my business. Well, then you start to sit down and actually visualize it, and you can mind map it. You can do whatever you want, but close your eyes and actually visualize the process. What would it look like to start that business? Well, I need to market. I need to get clients into the door. Okay, so after I create my website, after I do these things, I got to go and figure out how to get people here. I might be asking friends. I might be asking family members at first. I need to get people in. I'm going to be doing free offers. I'm probably going to do that 30, 40, 50 times before I get, you know, a decent body of work and start charging. And then once I do that, I have to do the advertising for it. And I got to learn Facebook ads, and I got to learn, you know, SEO, and I got to learn all these different components. Okay, now that I have, like, let's say 10 paying clients on a monthly basis, that's not going to be enough to get a studio. So I need to work out of my home. Okay, so this is about $2,000, $3,000. That means that I still need to do my day job, and I still need to work at Apple while I'm supporting all these things. So can I do this in the evenings and on the weekends? And is that where I want to spend my time? Yes. Okay. So let's go to 20. I need to get 20 clients in here on a monthly basis to get to that place. Now I'm shooting 4 times a week, maybe 5 every single week. There's a possibility that some of these clients might have problems with the work that I create. Maybe we don't jive. Can I work with these people and deal with, you know, customer service related functions? Oh, and then after that, I have all the post production. Can I even process 20 different shoots and get these people into the studio and do? So you get to the end of this process and you go, can I love that as much as I love the actual taking of a picture? And if you say no, then just enjoy the hobby. Like, just enjoy taking pictures. So a lot of us can make a great cup of coffee, and I say this in our education, a lot of us make great cups of coffee, but we don't want to go and open a coffee shop. Those are 2 very different things, okay? So that's what I would say, is to understand the differences and visualize your way through it.
I love that. See, that little snippet right there, I think people should just play that over and over and over again, the pre-visualization part of it, because that works on a lot of parts of, you know, your life, especially, you know, what you're talking about in terms of, do I really want to do this thing? But then also, where do I want to be? Like, who is the person that I'm designed to be? And what does that look like? You know, that whole vision board thing of, okay, I want to live in this kind of house. I want to drive this kind of car. I want to have these kind of friends, you know, that kind of flow. What does a day in the life of future you look like? And then how do you solve for that? So yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Sure.
So what's next? What's next for you? And if people want to connect, what's the best place to go to hear more of the dulcet tones of Pye Jirsa?
Put you to sleep. So our full length education is on slrloungeworkshops.com. That's where we have literally from picking up a camera to becoming a professional portrait and wedding photographer, all the education from the beginning all the way up through the end, including post-production, running a business, everything is there. On the presets and raw development side, we have VF presets. Our partner is actually Develop. So they are our partner, and that's its own kind of platform for raw presets. And then you guys can follow me at Pye Jirsa, and our studio is linandjirsa.com, and we have Lin and Jirsa on Instagram as well. And Born Uncreative is kind of the new little fun thing that we're going to be doing, fun bite-sized pieces of education, showing you guys to think creatively, because it's a muscle. It's not a gift.
It is. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, I'm gonna put you on the spot here with this last close the interview out question. you seem like a really cool dude. You got it all together. You know, you're a creative thought leader. You got it going on over there. What was one of Pye Jirsa's most embarrassing moments in recent memory that you can share with us, right? That's safe for work.
I've had so many of these.
Something you're like, geez, go for it.
A safe version. Okay, I'm going to give you a safe one. So I was standing in front of a wedding party of 16. It was about, I want to say 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, I wasn't as, I'm decently in shape now. 5 years ago, not so much. So I was a bigger boy, and I had my pants on, which were starting to get very tight on me. And I had this wedding party of 16, and they're like, let's do a jumping shot. And I was like, all right, we're going to do a jumping shot. And if you're going to do a jumping shot, we're going to do it right. And I'm like, as photographers, we got to take a bajillion of these things. So I'm not going to take a crappy jumping shot. I'm like, you down? And they're like, yeah, we're down. Like, I got all their attention. They're having a great time. We're on the beach. Like, okay, so I'm going to get low to the ground, and I'm going to get down here. What you guys are going to do is jump as high as you possibly can. And I was like, okay, let me show you what I mean. So I put the camera down, and I stand up. And I proceed to, like, I'm like, I don't want just like a little jump and like your legs are straight and everything. I want you to like flail about. I want you to do the splits in the air. And I think at the time I was like probably like 230, 240. I was a big boy with jeans, with pants that let's just say like I bought them when I was like maybe 210 pounds. Okay. So I was 30 pounds past using these same pants, but I was in denial. And I jumped, and the sound and everything I'll never forget. Like, I jumped and my legs go apart, and I'm like, yeah, this is what I want you to do. And I'm up in the air, and I just hear my pants split. Like, not like a small split. This was like from your fly down, like to the, like past the taint of your butt, like all the way up to like the backside of your, like, just, it just opened like a taco, like my everything. And
like a cornucopia of pie.
It was horrible, dude. Like, my underwear is like, there's no possible way. If you imagine that, like, it's literally split from the button on both sides. Like, the button where it meets your tummy to the backside where your belt is, it was split on both sides. So there's nothing you could do to like conceal it, even when you're standing. My underwear was like hanging out when I was standing. And the entire wedding party is like silent for a second. And then the guys are just like, "Wah!" And they start laughing, and everybody's like making fun of me. And I'm like, damn it. Like, all this, I just wanted to get a jumping shot. Just to
tell me this was at the end of the wedding. This was not the beginning of the day, right?
No, it was no. So it was middle of the day. So then I had about 6 more hours to go with these pants. And I eventually got the wedding coordinator to find me some safety pins, and I just like pinned together the safety. Like, so I just had pants that were like safety pinned together, held by like 2 strings on each side of my tummy and on my waist. Like, these are the only 2 places that the pants like still connected. And I went through the entire day shooting that way, and like everybody made fun of me. So from that day forward, I've never not had a spare set of clothes in my car.
That's what I was gonna say. That would have been the takeaway for me, is like, always have a backup. Always have a backup of clothes.
Some lessons you only need to learn once, Frederick.
Yes. Yeah. That's a PTSD lesson right there. That's, yeah. Whenever you do a jumping shot, you're probably like, okay, are my pants loose? Or, you know, we're good to go.
I'm not even going to demonstrate this. I'm just going to let you guys do what you want. The shot doesn't turn out, it's fine.
Just jump, you know. Cool. All right, man, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for taking the time to do this. This has been fantastic chat with you. I feel like you and I are going to chat a lot over the coming months and years or so. You're like kindred spirit, you know, we do a lot of the same things together. So we're definitely going to chat again. And I definitely want to have you on when you release the book and you start publishing the new podcast and all that. Just let me know. We'll spread the word on this side. Cool, man. All right. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe down in, you're in Southern California, right? Stay safe down there.
I am. Likewise, brother. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome, man. All right. I will be in touch. Take care. This episode was made possible by our friends at Fujifilm. Make images, share stories, and experience moments at the speed of life with Fujifilm. Thank you for staying home with us.